welcome back to my kitchen. But in case this is the first time you're stopping by, my name is Gina and I'm a wife and mother from the Midwest. I enjoy cooking fresh meals for my family, and sometimes I make videos of my recipes and I share them with you here on YouTube. Today we are going to be making a recipe for one of my top favorite comfort foods ever, queso mac and cheese, and it is creamy and luscious and it is extra cheesy. It's a little bit spicy. It is just everything that you could want in a slightly spicy mac and cheese. So, it's actually very easy. You can make it ahead and bake it off later. It's 4:20 here, so I've got to get going on this because we got to get some checkups for the girls tonight. So, let's jump right into our ingredients. First things first, you're going to need some pasta. You can use whatever kind you want. I happen to have elbow macaroni, so that's what I'm using today. But I prefer the corkscrew ones, like the Boston chicken ones. I still call it Boston chicken because apparently I live in 1992. But use whatever pasta you want. So I'm using elbow noodles. We're going to need some flour and some milk. I prefer whole milk for everything because flavor over calories, guys. I might not be a skinny girl, but my food is delicious. So whole milk or 2% milk, but do not use skim milk. It will just not be very good. So milk and flour. For our cheeses, 99% of our cheese we're going to be using is Chihuahua cheese. It's actually fine to use the pre-shredded one from the bag for this if you use the Supremo brand, because they don't put a lot of fillers in there or that powder that separates the cheese, and it melts fine. So Chihuahua cheese. This is actually cotija cheese inside of this container. I was just repurposing the container. So we're going to need a little bit of cotija for our topping. Our seasonings are just going to be some salt, some onion powder, and some ground mustard. You can add in some black pepper or white pepper if you want, but I think it's fine with these diced green chilies. Which brings us to this ingredient. This is a 4-ounce can of diced green chiles, and this is relatively mild. So I've actually doubled this before in the recipe, but today we're just going to do 1 can because I want the girls to eat it. And then we're going to also be using some cream cheese, which I forgot to mention earlier. And then our topping is just going to be made from panko breadcrumbs, some chives, and cotija cheese. Wow, I couldn't remember what I was saying. And then we're going to need some butter. You're going to need it for making your roux and also for greasing your pan. So first step first is to grease our pan, which I have done. I just take a little slop of butter on a paper towel and rub it all up in there. Let me go ahead and get my pots and pans out. This is super easy. We're just basically going to make the sauce, and I will be back in a second. And hopefully I will talk slower because I feel like I'm really speeding along here. All right, folks, so the first thing we're going to be doing is making our cheese sauce. So we're going to be using a total of 4 tablespoons of butter for this recipe, but it's divided. So I have 2 tablespoons here in our saucepan, melting. And then our roux is always equal parts butter and flour. So this is 2 tablespoons of flour, and 2 tablespoons is 1/4 cup or 1/8 cup. We're just going to go ahead and whisk this around for a moment. We are not going to brown this off like a traditional Louisiana roux because we don't want to add any color to our sauce. So this looks good. And next thing we're going to do is we are going to slowly drizzle in and whisk 2 cups of milk, but you might end up adding more in the end depending. So I'm just going to toss in a little bit and whisk it up. And the reason you want to do it little by little is so you don't end up with a chunky sauce. All right, there's 1 cup, and measure off the next cup. I've got this over a medium flame right now. Not thickening it up yet, but that's okay. We're actually making a very thin bechamel because we're going to be adding gobs of delicious cheese to this. So don't worry if you don't see it thickening up too much. So there we go. We've got 2 cups of whole milk in here. Now I am going to go ahead and bring this up to a simmer when it starts to bubble, and in the meantime I'll measure out our cheese. So right now I have 2 ounces of cream cheese, which is about 1/4 cup, cut up into 2 pieces. That'll be the next thing that I add in. So I'll be back after I measure out our chihuahua cheese and add in the cream cheese, and once it's fully melted in here. All right, guys, so as you can see, our sauce has started to simmer, so I'm going to turn the heat to medium-low. I've got our cream cheese here. I decided to just add it on in while we're on camera here. So I'm going to pop 1 piece in. I like to do the cream cheese first just to make sure that it's totally melted before we add our other cheeses. Takes actually longer than you'd expect to melt the cream cheese, so let's go ahead and pop the other one in. And while this sits for a second, we will talk about our spice mixture, which we're going to add in at this point as well. So over here I've measured out, just for TV magic, 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So we can go ahead and add that into our pot at this point. If you wanted to add any pepper, white pepper, black pepper, go ahead and add that at this point as well. I'd say probably about 1/2 teaspoon of either will be more than sufficient. I'm going to taste it after I add the diced green chiles because this is a different brand than I usually buy, so I don't know how peppery they are. If you like garlic, you could add a little garlic powder for your family as well. Totally up to you. All right, so as you can see, it's starting to thicken up nicely. You do want to keep whisking because you don't want it to burn on the bottom of the pot. And it looks pretty good. We can start adding in our other cheese. So we're going to add in about 2.5 cups of shredded chihuahua cheese to this. So I have about 1.5 cups here. So we're going to add that first half in and whisk until it's melted. Make sure you get it all over your floor too, guys. It's an important part of the recipe. So this is where you're going to start to see it really start coming together. Oh man, it smells so good already. Let that sit for a second. Before I add in the remaining cup of cheese, I'm going to add in our diced green chiles, and you don't want to drain these. Just leave them just as they are and dump it right into your pot. Make sure you get all of them. Go ahead and whisk this in. We're probably going to have to add a little bit of milk to thin this out because as you can see, it's already pretty thick. So let me go ahead and put you on pause. I'm going to measure out my other cup of cheese and I'll be back before I add any other milk so you can see what the texture looks like and we can discuss whether or not we want to add in more milk. All right, I added in our extra cup of cheese, and as you can see, it is very much like liquid cheese right now, and I like it to be a little bit saucier. This is totally a personal preference. You could absolutely proceed and make your macaroni and cheese with this, but I like it to be a little bit looser. So I'm just going to eyeball it and add, let's say, 1/4 cup of milk, and mix her up. Also, I should mention on the side, I've got a pot of water with about a tablespoon of salt coming to boil so we can cook off our macaroni. This is still over medium-low heat. Still a little bit thick, so probably another 1/4 cup of milk. Yeah, this looks like it's just about right. So let this heat for a moment because it's going to have to melt the cheese because we added cold milk to it. And I will show you the final consistency before we add everything back together. So all I'm going to do in the meantime is cook our macaroni off. I'm going to boil it al dente, so probably a minute less than what the cooking time on the package says. And that's because it's going to be cooking in the oven with our sauce on it. And we don't want it to become a bunch of mushy pasta. So I'll be back with our cooked macaroni and we'll assemble our mac and cheese and get it in the oven. I thought I'd pop on for one more second, guys, and show you what our sauce looks like when it's the correct consistency. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a spoon and you're going to dip the spoon into your cheese sauce and you're going to flip it over. And when it coats the back of the spoon nicely, you know you have a good temperature or consistency for your sauce. So you can also take your finger and you can swipe the spoon, and as you can see, there's no running. The sauce stays in place because this is really hot. It's temperature hot right now. So when it cools, it's gonna thicken up. So it looks a little bit loose. It looks almost like a cheese soup, but once this is baked and is on the table, it's gonna be the perfect consistency. So I just wanted to show you the back of the spoon trick. And I also wanted to mention that this is 1 pound of pasta. So that was a big box of pasta, so I did half of it. I'm gonna go ahead and boil this off. I'm going to drain it, and then we're gonna mix everything together and get this baby in the oven. All right, while our pasta finishes up boiling, I'm just gonna make the breadcrumb topping really quick. So I have our reserved 2 tablespoons of butter here in a bowl that I microwaved and melted. This is about a cup, should actually be like a cup and a half of breadcrumbs. That's what I have written down. So I'm just gonna use whatever I have left in here, but I would recommend a cup and a half of panko breadcrumbs. And then this is just a little chunk of chives that I chopped up. It's, I don't know, like a half a cup, third of a cup. I'm dumping this all into the butter, and then I'm just gonna do it as an eyeball, but I'd say add a 1/4 cup of cotija cheese. That looks good. And then I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up. We are not adding any salt to this mixture because we already have used salted butter, and our sauce is actually on the saltier side. If you were to taste the cheese sauce, it is definitely a little bit salty, and that's good because we needed to flavor the pasta. It's been boiled in salty water, but just trust me on this. It's good that it's a little bit extra salty. So mix this up. I'll set this to the side, and now I'll be back in a few seconds. Okay guys, so I drained our pasta. You don't rinse it. You never want to rinse your pasta unless you're making a pasta salad, because you want all those starches to stay on the outside of the noodle. And here comes our, let's see if I can hold this with arthritis. This is the money shot, guys. Cheese sauce heaven. If you guys like queso, you're absolutely gonna love this. If you love mac and cheese, you're gonna love it. If you're just of the human species, you are going to love this because it is so delicious. So we're gonna go ahead and get this mixed up right in the pot that we boiled our pasta in because we don't need to make any extra dishes. As you can see, it's very saucy, which is what we want because we're going to be baking this off at 375 for about 15 more minutes. So some of the water that is in the sauce from the milk will be absorbed by the pasta, and it'll be nice and thick and creamy and delicious. Let me put you on pause for a second because, as I just mentioned, I have arthritis and I cannot pick up heavy things with my hands anymore. Yes, at 34 years old, I know. And I don't want to spill this all over the floor. So let me get this into our prepared dish, and we'll be back to put our breadcrumbs on top. Okay, guys, so as you can see, our mac and cheese is in our dish. I have a spatula here because I made sure that I scraped all of that cheese sauce out and into this pan because you don't want to waste any of it, trust me. Go ahead and kind of smooth it out and make sure everybody's under the sauce. If you're not into baked mac and cheese, you could have left the sauce thicker at the beginning, just so you know, and then just eat it stovetop version after you mix it up just like this, and it will be delicious. Since we're making a video, I'm going to be a little extra because I got a lot of cheese, and I'm going to sprinkle a thin layer of chihuahua right on top of the mac and cheese. It's going to be underneath our breadcrumb layer, and it'll just add a little extra ooey gooiness. Who doesn't love that? I'm so excited to eat this, guys. I love this mac and cheese. And the next thing we're going to do is just take our breadcrumbs and we're going to sprinkle them all over the top. Sorry, this is a bizarre angle for me to be reaching this far over. We're going to use all of the breadcrumb topping. If you only have green onions, use green onions. It'll be delicious. I've done it both ways. If you wanted to, you could probably put cilantro in there. You could probably put fresh parsley. Really up to you. Just don't add any extra salt to the breadcrumbs because cotija, salty. Chihuahua, salty. Salted butter, salty. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get that last little bit of breadcrumbs on here. This is what it looks like before we bake it. Again, 375 for about 15 minutes. Then we'll check it out and see if we're going to broil it to make sure that the breadcrumbs are crispy. All right, kitchen fam, this is what it looks like after 15 minutes at 375. I have turned off my oven, I've turned on my broiler, and I'm gonna broil this on the top shelf here for like 1 or 2 minutes just so it looks like a little bit more golden, but we're basically gravy. We just wanted to be quiet for a second so you can have some respect for the crackling of the cheese, guys. Literally about a minute underneath the broiler here. I'm going to go ahead and let this sit for about 5 minutes before we scoop it out. I'm going to eat without Daniel because we were in a rush to get to the doctors for the girls. But we will get a taste test out of him when he gets home. Dang, look at this. It smells so good, y'all. Just in case we forget to get a taste test off of Daniel when he gets home because we are going to be in a hurry. I thought I would show you what's up with this mac and cheese. First of all, do you see how nicely this comes out of the pan? Second of all, I know some of you probably are like, that cheese sauce looks watery, girl. No, it's perfect. It's still creamy, even though we've baked it, but it's not sitting in a pool of liquid, and it's also not dry. Oh man, the flavor is so, so, so good. Look, we get cheese pull. It's just a delicious, creamy, salty, perfect amount of salt sauce with a light flavor of those diced green chiles in there, and I really think that you guys will like it. What, Olivia? It is how it looks. But Olivia and Felicity are not wanting to eat it. Fifi, can you try the mac and cheese for me for my video? Come on, girl. One bite. Alright guys, I guess we're not getting a taste test out of Fifi. So, let's hope that Daniel gets home and gives us a nice on-camera bite. But if not, like and subscribe and I'll see you guys later.